Hello. I just want to take a minute to share something with you that God kind of reminded me of, sort of, last night, this morning. So, yesterday, all day long, like I've been singing at church, and so when they give us the list of songs that we're going to be singing, and then after practice, I just kind of listen to the songs over and over and again to make sure that I really know the songs. So yesterday, I had our songs that we're singing that we sang today on loop, and it was just kind of like repeating. And have you ever been listening to something and then you noticed a few minutes in that you weren't actually listening or you weren't actually hearing what was being said? And that sort of happened to me yesterday. So one of the songs that we sang was Overwhelmed by Big Daddy Weave. And I'd heard the song, but never really heard the song before. And even yesterday, as it was like playing over and over again, it probably took me about maybe the 10th time of it playing that I actually heard some of the words. And part of the words are, I know the power of the cross. I am forgiven and forever free. And then there's another part that says, I run into his arms, unashamed because of mercy. And this morning, I actually said that before we sang the song, because for years, I spent so much time living in this place of shame and guilt. And that shame and that guilt, like God forgave me, but I couldn't forgive myself. And so I lived under this constant feeling of just being ashamed and feeling guilty. And because of that, I was always very apprehensive in the way that I approached God or approaching God, because I just carried this shame and this guilt. And so what I did this morning before the song is I just challenged everyone that if they were still living with shame and guilt from years past, to actually trust the power of the cross. If you know and you believe that Jesus died for you, that Jesus was our perfect sacrifice, and he took away our sin and our guilt, and then I challenge you also to trust the power of the cross to cleanse you and to make you clean. I challenge you to take all of your shame and all of your guilt and to put it down at the foot of the cross. And when you approach God, to approach God with your whole self, to just worship him with everything that you've got, and just see if God doesn't do great things in you. So that's the first part of it. The second part of it is the fact that I felt God kind of speaking that to me last night as I was trying to go to sleep. And I thought, the person that I sing with, she normally prepares something before the service, and it's always really good and it's always really inspiring. So I thought, you know what, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to say anything. And then I woke up this morning, and as soon as I woke up, that's the very first thing that came to my mind, is that I needed to share that. So I'm getting ready at our church to start a group study on the 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth by John Maxwell. And so I was reading chapter 1, and chapter 1 is the law of intentionality, having intention of growing. And the law is that we have to actually make growth happen, or we have to actually do something to make growth happen. Growth isn't automatic. We don't automatically grow. And in that first chapter, John Maxwell is talking about the fact that we don't grow from a place of comfort. if we want to grow, if we want to expand, then we're going to have to be uncomfortable sometimes. We are going to have to do the things that maybe scare us a little bit, or the things that make us a little uncomfortable. And when I read that, it was kind of like I made this decision, this conscious decision, to not ever say no to something because of my comfort level. Now, obviously, there will be other reasons to say no to something, but to never say no because something scared me or something made me uncomfortable. So I made this decision to just move forward and be intentional about growing and be intentional about finding my purpose and finding my calling and doing what God has called me to do. So in being intentional, I have to know and be prepared and be ready for moments of not being exactly comfortable. And that's sort of what God reminded me of this morning when I woke up. Remember how you decided that you weren't going to say no to something because it made you a little uncomfortable? And I also knew, so I decided, okay, I'm gonna say something. I'm gonna ask if I can speak before that song. But I also knew when I got to the church this morning for our morning practice, our quick run through of the songs, that I had to move quickly. Because if I allowed myself to wait, then ultimately I would talk myself out of asking and saying, and then I would just kind of get comfortable, and then of course that word would have gone unsaid. So that's the same for you. Know that you will never grow from a place of comfort. Just like when a bodybuilder decides to start working out and building muscles, they don't go and they don't start with, they don't start with the heaviest weights. They start with a lighter weight, but it's enough to make them uncomfortable, and they grow into it. If they didn't stretch, if they didn't have to struggle a little bit, then their muscles would never grow. And that's the same with us. If we are always keeping ourselves completely safe and completely comfortable, we will never grow beyond where we're at. And I know that God has a calling for you. I know that God has called you into something. And maybe you're not experiencing it because you're looking for your comfort level to go up or your fear to go away. And that's not going to happen. God has called us to step out. I recently also on Facebook, I was invited to join a little devotional group. And I joined it, and the title is 100 Days to Brave, and they're going through a devotional book. And through that book, I'm finding even more that bravery is not being unafraid of something. Bravery is being afraid and doing it anyway and trusting God with the results. I choose bravery because that's how God's going to use me. And you have to make a choice to choose bravery also. To be brave, to step out, and to let God use you and speak through you. And do whatever it is that God wants to do to you, for you, and through you. But it's going to take an intentional choice. It's going to take a decision that, you know what? I'm not going to let my comfort level decide if I'm going to do something or not. If I feel like God is leading me to do it, I'm going to do it, even if I'm afraid. I'm going to do it afraid. I'm going to do it scared and let God bring the results. So I told my mom today that in the future, if God tells me to speak, I'm going to speak. Even if that means that my tongue is stuck to the roof of my mouth because of nerves and my mouth, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do it scared. Because I'm going to choose to be used of God. And that choice takes bravery. So I'm challenging you to do that also. Be brave, step out, and trust God with the results. See you next time.